Welcome back to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, along with my very special guest today, Reverend Dr. Linda Coff. And we're talking, of course, about a lot of different things here, but of course, the latest work that we're talking about is Bridge of the Gods. And it's interesting how, depending upon the philosophical bent, if you will, that you were born and raised into, kind of determines your philosophical bent today as an adult, maybe. I'm curious, before we delve any further, about your beginnings in this whole aspect of the divine and so forth, and your parents and family and relatives' influences on you as you were growing up.
Well, growing up, my family is Roman Catholic. So growing up, you know, we went to church and all that, and I also, I loved meditation, so I would go more often, you know, just to sit and meditate and contemplate. But then, so that was a great strength to be raised with that. And yet I had some, at that time, you know, I can remember taking some classes when I was very, very, very young, and there would be, you know, things put out like, well, you know, it seemed that only Catholics can get to heaven at that time. You know, the way they put forth the religion.
No, I remember.
So much better.
Yeah.
And it just was a mystery to me. I could not comprehend it. Why would a loving God, you know, why would he insist, you know, that you have to be this way or that way, you know? And why? How come my neighbor, who's my good friend and who's just wonderful, can't get to heaven?
Yeah.
That, you know, as a kid, this is my dialogue. And I realized very early, as much as I love the purity of the aspects, that there's so much interference. You know, once a thing is in structural form, the church itself had a lot of growth to do, you know.
Yeah.
And it has been doing that, so that's very good. You know, the original meaning or the meaning of Catholic is universal. So I've always, I just came in that way, you know, believing that all people are important, significant, one with God. And, you know, although people have different traditions, we're one at the root, you know, so everybody's entitled to pick their favorite tradition. And as I went on, you know, after receiving training in Catholicism, you know, and I realized that it wasn't, to my view, really empowering people, maybe because to address life in a very successful way. There were the don'ts at that time, you know, the thou shalt not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering about, what are the thou shalts? You know,
Yeah.
what are the thou shalts?
Where's the other side?
You know, like,
equal time, please.
So, you know, there wasn't enough constructive thought that you could apply, you know, and at least in my experience at that point. And so especially when I got into college, I really, I think the first dawning of interest, true active interest in metaphysics, although I always knew that, you know, I was interested in it from day one, was because I was interested in the cause of things, you know, what causes and what causes disease, what causes, that's always been on my mind. And but in college, I remember we had an elective, and there I had majored in acting and did some wonderful roles, and great things happened from there. But you had the opportunity to take an elective, and it was on super consciousness. And I really, really loved that class because it started to open up, you know, to what that super consciousness or higher consciousness, divine consciousness is. And I knew that was the, that was the beginning of it. So I spent quite a number of years acting on Broadway and all of that, following that experience. And then I came to a point where that other interest took over. And I was becoming less and less. I loved the acting because I loved interpreting characters and doing all of that. But there seemed to me there must be something greater. And that's when I started to look into metaphysics and was just blessed with literally the greatest teachers just appearing in my life that I didn't even know that I was seeking.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that I was looking for these people. And a lot of the people who were on the forefront at that time, we had in the physical world, the Ida Rolf and all the, innovative therapies, Gestalt, and all these things that were happening for healing, mind, body, and being. But the most important was when as I sought through things and looked at different systems and ways that came to me, I thought they were all good, but nothing led me to feel that I had found it. And it wasn't until I call my very first real teacher of truth, Lester Levinson, who founded Mind Freedom, now called the Sedona Method.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So Lester, I spent many years actually with Lester and studying, and I knew that I had found it because he went beyond. There was no longer, life was not. You couldn't find life by looking in your experience. You can't find it there. You can't find the reality of life by looking at who hurt you and who did what and what was a good time and what was a bad time, You have to look underneath all. And I found at the bottom of the deep bottom, is the light, is the sunlight, is the sun of the light of spirit. That is who we are. So from that deep center, you can overcome. And you never need refer to any experience ever again once you've healed yourself about it, And so he had some wonderful, wonderful methods, and I knew that I had found it. And he just manifested in my life quite spontaneously. And I knew that I was looking for answers, but I did not know from whom or how that would be. And with all of the investigation and great friends and associations that I had, and all these, new technologies and methods, none of them were hitting home for me until I met Lester, And then I didn't need to seek anymore. Then I did not need to seek because I had a path that I could research infinitely. And he was the first one to talk about this universe being a universe of law and order, love and law. And from him, I knew that I could be free of the past, free to expand as far as I want. And the truth is we're all as free right now as we ever shall be, but it's how we use it. So, we're free to shut the door,
right?
Or free to be open at the top.
Sure. I've even told people this that and again, this is just an observation on my part. I'm almost being apologetic of my own statements, kind of like Mr. Kazantzakis of the of the book, The Last Temptation of Christ, in his preface. And I remember reading it because I was so curious as to why there was so much fervor back in the 80s over this movie. And he says basically in it, he says, these are just my musings. I'm not saying that this is the truth or this is the way it happened. I'm saying, what if? What if? So I'm saying that when you talk about, we have this freedom, there are some constructs, man-made constructs that I use the term are irrelevant to the divine and to spirit. And the concepts are freedom, liberty, and privacy. They are all irrelevant because this is the reason I come to this conclusion. If God, the divine power, however you want to determine to describe it, is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, all is already known about you. Mm-hmm. We are all connected. I use the example, for example, of the Star Trek Next Generation character, the Borg. They're all connected, even though each one of them has a different task. They're receiving message from a higher power, if you will. And as far as these constructs that we live by for liberty, that's an individualistic construct, and we're not, even though in this material world, yes, we are individuals, but at the same time, we're not, because we're all connected. You affect me, I affect you, and when we begin to realize that, we begin to adjust and alter our outward actions based upon our inner understanding that I am you and you are me, and I don't want to hurt me, so why would I want to hurt you?
Exactly.
So those constructs, in my estimation, in my observation, they're not wrong. They're not bad. They're irrelevant. They're irrelevant to a true spiritual life.
What does the words can only rise? The meaning of words can only rise as high as the consciousness that's entertaining them. Mm-hmm. And so when one person says liberty and another says liberty, it's going to be entirely different. Mm-hmm. But the oneness, the uniqueness, even the Constitution of the U.S., mm-hmm. Is one undivided
indivisible.
Nation.
Yeah, indivisible.
Indivisible nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is as spirit that we are all interdependent, all interconnected.
That's it. What
I do affects everybody, everyone. Mm-hmm. So yet each one is unique. This is the thing, that there's no repetition. So nobody will conduct a radio show like you will. There's no other Richard Dugan. There's no other Linda Coff. And there never will be. Yet we are one. We're one, but each one has unique strengths and assets and characteristics and so on. And in a path where they're evolving, evolving to be the best self that you can be.
And I tell you, the very unique and wonderful and amazing thing about it all is, going back to my observations of L.A. traffic and the fact that there are so few accidents by comparison to the volume of cars on the road, it's amazing that we are able to, on that spiritual level, accomplish the kinds of things that we do as a collective group who are hopefully working on that at that higher level.
Oh yeah.
It's just absolute, and there are times when I look around, and I end up getting distracted by the material world when I look around, and I'm going, we haven't accomplished anything. I mean, if anything, we've barely crossed the threshold of the cave that we've been living in since we've been here. You know, and then at the same time, you know, when I get together with folks of like mind and soul and spirit and so forth, I think, wow, boy, this is pretty cool. We've come quite a ways. And I realize that it has nothing to do with how far we get. It's not the destination. It never has been, because whatever the destination is, we'll eventually get there. It doesn't matter. Matter of fact, I remember a conversation with my brother. We were walking in the desert after a family reunion at this Elks Lodge in central Arizona. And I was chatting away about, the things that I've been doing and researching and beliefs and this and that and the other thing. And my brother says, well, geez, it's about time you got it. And I said to him, I says, it's not about when you get it, but that you get it.
Yeah.
And when you get it is when you get it. It doesn't matter. There's no timetable.
I like to think that everybody is getting there eventually.
Yeah.
And each in their own time.
And we're there to help. We're there to assist. We're there to
Right.
support in whatever way that we can. You know, and I mean, I get frustrated when I do, like I say, look at the material world, and I'm going, does man really deserve to continue on as a species? Look at what a mess he's made. And
God is really tolerant,
and
right?
he wants to go to Mars too, and do the same thing there. You know, and I'm going, hey, calm down. You know, because one of two things is probably going to happen. Either A, we're going to continue on, or B, we're not. Okay, and there's nothing I can really do about that. I still remember hearing the stories about Armageddon and the end of the world while working at this Christian station, and I was there for 15 years. And after about 8 or 9 years of this, I'm going, is there any way that I could help to facilitate the speeding up of this process so we can move beyond this silly story that I'm really getting bored with? You know, I mean, if there's going to be an Armageddon, if there's going to be an end of the world, if there's going to be an Antichrist that's going to take over, can I help bring that about now? You know, because I want to move on to that 1,000 years of peace and everything. Of course, they never really talk about what comes after that. But nonetheless, it's just one of those things.
The domains of peace, you know.
Yeah. And
so
what is
much energy is, on this plane is involved in conflict,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and even within the soul, you know, an individual soul, there's the struggle, like Jacob wrestling with the archangel, struggle between the higher and lower elements of oneself, and making the greater choices. But being willing is great. But there are people who are stuck in resistance, terrified on a collective level. Leaders terrified of letting go the old way. The way that has worked for them, the way of the strong arm, the way of the bully, whatever it may be, it has seemed to work for them. And this terror, if I let go and be a loving, all-inclusive, risen being, maybe I'll lose everything. So fear, I really believe that fear is the underlying cause for the continuing ongoing problems that just have gone on for so long. And, whether it's a person or a country, it's no matter. Everybody is under the same divine laws.
Exactly.
Country to country is like person to person. There has to be that forgiveness in order for people to move out of centuries of identifying with the past. There has to be mutuality, mutual benefit in agreements. Life is not a one-way street.
No, it's not.
Plus, there's a big lane above, and we've got to harmonize. We owe it to our divine Father, Mother to harmonize there. But, you can see how easily situations would be resolved, if people didn't have such a buildup of fear and programming.
Yeah.
They could let go. They could build anew countries I'm talking about, have the resources put into that rather than fighting, holding on, brother against brother, country against country, But that's a massive thing to ask from people, cultures who've been steeped in it for so long.
Yeah, it is very difficult, yes.
And so that's what's taking time, because until things reach a collective mass, that 50% strength, the new thing doesn't really take place, although it's present in many, many individuals all over the earth, long for this peace. They long for, to have good relationships, the people themselves. And they long for the education. They long for justice. It's present in the people and has been.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's really up to leadership. Leadership is, if you're in leadership, you're in a powerful position. You can heal the world.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
So
the question is, are you willing to do it?
Huh?
The question is, are people willing to do that? Are they willing to make that step, or are they going to stay focused on, what's in it for me and what can I get out of it, and how can I, because I know this won't last forever, so I better feather my nest. I better take advantage of the situation.
And then what? What you only get to take with you who you are.
Yeah. Here, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Here in Santa Barbara, we had, of course, the massive fire in December of 2017, and then in January we had the mudslide in the Montecito area in particular, and so forth. And I have said this since I've lived here and have experienced these fires over and over and over again, and then of course these kinds of situations in January of 2018. These events are the great equalizer. It doesn't matter what your position and status socially, politically, economically are, religiously, whatever category you want to put. When these events happen, if your house gets burned to the ground or slid off the hillside or whatever the case might be, you lose everything. Now you are like everybody else. Everybody is now equal. There are no greater and there are no lesser. We're all humans. And they seem to realize that. They band together, they join together, realizing that, hey, I can't survive unless I help others to do the same. I know I need to take care of me too, and that's extremely important. And the old survivalist rule number one is take care of number one, because then you can't take care of 2, 3, 4, and 5 if you aren't taking care of you. Mm-hmm. But everybody's the same now. And there is nobody higher or lower. We all are now in it together. And that's why we use the analogy of the lifeboat. It'll hold 7.5 to 8 billion people, but there's a condition. You have to be willing to let go of the old ways. We're going to try some new things. We're going to try some new ways.
And the potential is humongous.
Oh, it's enormous. Absolutely enormous.
If people, could see from God's point of view, when they make a statement or try downing another race, another religious tradition, if they could see from God's point of view how it really has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with God at all. That kind of opinion, separation, separatist, better or worse thinking, it doesn't. So until you arrive at a platform where you see that, yes, indeed, all people are equal, all people are beloved, all races are God's rainbow, all are precious to God, until you've arrived at that, it's such a lower level to be in enmity, and you cannot use all the great things, all the great energy, creative energy that people have if they were not caught up in separation, would be used to be creating, inventing, developing new ways, establishing a whole new world
Yeah.
here, you know.
Well, I have to say that one of the things that for example, I noticed in our last political cycle, and this was at more than just one level, the use of divide and conquer was used.
That's an old political tool.
I know. But it was,
if you get
but
the
it was
people warring amongst themselves, you can do what the heck you want.
exactly. And I thought, wow, do you people not see what's going on around you? And no, because they were too busy fighting amongst themselves because they had been told that they were different than the people on the other side of the line, and that the other people on the other side of the line, not only were they wrong, but this world would be a much better place if they were just gone. And I hear this kind of conversation on some radio programs, which I will listen to for a split second and then tune out, turn to a different channel. And I think, number one, you complain about the other side. And so, first of all, I would say, don't you think you owe them a great debt of gratitude for the fact that if they weren't there, you'd have nothing to talk about? All right.
How true it is.
And number two, if you had only gotten out the volumes of people that you say you have on your side to vote, to make sure they didn't get into any positions of power, then we wouldn't be in the world of hurt that you say that we're in. So really, this is on you. This isn't on them. So if they are the problem, you created the problem because you didn't get the people out to vote. So it's like you can't blame the other side if you didn't do enough. But again, what we're trying to do is we're trying not to maintain the division. We're trying to bring people together and realize we can't do it alone. And if we try, we will fail. That's a guarantee. It's been borne out through history. A house divided against itself cannot, will not, does not stand. And that's the sad reality. But one of the things that I'm hoping that we can do through these programs is share with people the ideas, the concepts that you're not alone. That's extremely important to understand, that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. And what I am also promoting through my book that I finally finished in 2017, and hopefully will be out sometime soon, is that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are where you're feeling alone. You always have choices. What those choices are up to you. But if you haven't been educated, and I'm an inordinate supporter of education in the broadest sense, if you haven't had the education to show you that there are a myriad of choices, but you've just been told what to think, well, then you need to do more investigation and research, because I've learned this primarily through working with computers over the last 25 years. There is always a workaround. I don't care what it is. There's always a workaround. And whatever the situation is, that's just the term I use. But we have so many opportunities and choices. But there are those who don't want us to know that those choices exist. Ergo, they will deprive people of that education. I used to jokingly say that I was going to go back and sue my grade school and high school for educational malpractice, because there was so much that I didn't get exposed to that I should have been, like mythology and philosophy and on, and the list goes on. But I want to let people know about a few things that you are doing. First of all, you've got several works out: Songs of Eternity, Contemplations, Treatments, and Meditations on the Word of God, Divine Romance and Perfect Partnership, The Immortal Principles and Powers of Divine Love, Divine Prosperity, the Unexpected Income Program, 12 Steps to Your Perfect Consciousness of Infinite and Eternal Supply. I like this one, Mysticism and Ultimate Divine Healing Processes, The Perfect Principles and Patterns of God. Could you alliterate a little bit more? I don't see enough alliteration in there. And then, of course, we're talking also, of course, of the book Bridge of the Gods, a handbook for ascending humanity, the golden pathway to your highest God self. The website is revdrlindadecoff.com. That's revdrlindadecoff.com. We will be linked to that website as well, and we encourage you to go there and investigate and check out what Linda has to offer. And Linda, I want to first of all, I want to thank you for taking so much time to share with us here on the program. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this, and I hope that it was informative and enlightening and as well as entertaining to our listeners. And secondly, should you find yourself here in the Santa Barbara area, we would love to have you in studio to talk more about these subjects.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Well, that ought to be coming about within, a couple of months, so I'll let you know. But, Richard, it is a pleasure to speak with you, and I'm very grateful for your asking me to do this interview. And thank you for pointing people to my website. They should also know that in addition to these books, there are full talks that I'm currently running on higher consciousness themes. So if people really want to study in depth, like we were talking about, they'll find once a month I'm producing a talk, which you can find on my website under the archive month, and it's on YouTube, so they can listen to information specifically directed to a particular theme.
Oh,
so,
great!
And every month you'll see in the setup on my website, you'll see January, the Divine Consciousness talk, and then
so
you'll
forth,
see an event, that may be going on too. So there's lots of good stuff, and at least once a month, those longer talks for deeper studying and meditations are up there.
Well, we will encourage people to certainly go to your website and investigate all that. Also, before we let you go, and again, thank you so much for the time. Also, we want to ask you 3 final questions we'd like to ask our guests as we wrap up the program.
Yes.
And the first question is, and I'm gonna keep it just to your name. Who is Linda DeCoff?
I am that I am.
Okay. I like it. Very good. Very good.
So, how do you want me to answer that, Richard?
However you choose to. That was a wonderful answer. Our second question is, what is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you're doing now?
I'd like to see so many people liberated in their lives, freed, and finding new joy from being able to let go all the limitation and to have access to the true bounty of all kinds, relationships and work, financial, all the things that mean things to people. I would like to see that happen. That is my greatest joy, and that's why I wrote the book, so people can find tangible, easy ways to accomplish, what you and I have been talking about. And so my books have wonderful stories where you can get, you'll know through the story when somebody applied a certain principle and how life changed for them, how it will change for, how the audience will know how it will change for you. So that's my greatest joy. And I'd like to I am starting work on another, this particular series was 7 books, and that's to give out those divine patterns in all the areas of life that are important for people. And the next series that I'm going to be doing will be a 4-volume series of specific, smaller lectures, let's say,
Mhm.
essays and lectures on different spiritual themes. And each volume will concentrate on one area. So, for instance, one will be raising consciousness, evolving consciousness. The second will be on the creative laws, and so on. So, through my books, I want to give people the gamut. I want them to be able to get from A to infinity, from where they are to the infinite. And that gives me great joy.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, again, Reverend Dr. Linda Coff, thank you so much for joining us on the program. And again, the reminder, it is revdrlindadecoff.com. We will be linked to her website. We encourage you to go there as well. And also a reminder that if you're listening to the radio broadcast, there is an after view of this program. In other words, there's more to this interview than just the 50 minutes that you will hear on the radio broadcast. So go to richarddugan.com, the radio shows page, and go to the link to Linda DeCoff's website, as well as to the play button for the interview. Linda, again, thank you so much. I'm Richard Dugan. This has been Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Until next time, love to love.